mail. And I have a feeling that it is a huge canvas for my next commission. And I'm kind of scared because it's almost as tall as I am, but let's unbox it. Now, the person who's actually commissioning me to make this piece actually lives about 10 hours away. So this is really exciting and also nerve-wracking because I'm going to meet them in person because neither of us trust the post office enough to send it in the mail. This is also the biggest commission that I've ever done, so I'm really excited to see how this turns out. I guess I'm not very good at opening boxes. And here's the grand reveal. That wasn't very grand. So here it is unboxed. The actual painting is going to be sideways because that is the design that they want. I'm actually going to insert a picture right here. This is the painting that I'm going to be referencing for this commission. And I think for this video, I'm going to be taking more of a tutorial-ish approach because a bunch of you guys wanted more like in-depth how I sort of make my paintings. So the goal is to put this on this. But before I can start painting anything on here, I need to make a grid. And the way you do that, you just need two very simple math equations. What you do first is you measure how long your canvas is and then count how many pixels long your reference is and then divide those numbers. So my canvas is 48 inches wide and this reference is 64 pixels wide. So I'm going to divide 48 by 64 and that will give me the length of each pixel. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the height. So I'm going to measure how tall the canvas is and then count how many pixels tall the reference is and then divide those numbers. So for my example, it is 24 inches divided by 32 pixels. And then once you have those two numbers, then that's the size of each pixel. Thankfully, my canvas is the right proportion, so I can keep everything in perfect squares. So I'm going to be marking every 0.75 inches all around all four sides, and then I'm just going to connect those lines. I'm only half done with this, and my back is already killing me. If you're wanting to do a project like this and your pixels don't end up being perfect squares, it's okay. This painting here and my door, those pixels are not perfect squares. They're a little bit taller than they are wide. As long as it's pretty close, your painting should be fine. All right, I just finished the grid and it actually didn't take as long as I thought it would. And I found a yardstick, which ended up saving me a lot of time because it is the perfect size. So yeah, next up is primer. So this is the primer that I'm going to be using. It's nothing fancy. It's just something that I happen to have in my house. And then back here you can see I just set paper underneath the canvas so that I don't get paint on the floor because I don't think my parents would like that very much. And the reason that I add primer at this point is just so that when I add actual paint on top of it, that the pencil doesn't smear at all, because then I would have to add way more layers of paint and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to paint a thin layer of this on here and let it dry overnight. It is now the next day and this is completely dry, and I just got a bunch of paint that I think I'll need, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is make an outline of the border on here just so that when I go to actually fill it in, I won't be counting the pixels wrong. And for that, I'm just going to be using this. I just finished the first coat of the border. It doesn't look great because it's only the first coat. And I did paint the sides except for the bottom one because I don't want it to stick to the paper. And now that I have that done, I'm going to start on this little black piece on top because I feel like that's a pretty simple place to start. So what I do is I count how many across, so it's 13 across, down 4, down 3, and etc. And then I just make like an outline and then transfer that onto here and then just fill it in. Alright, I just finished the black, so now I'm going to move on to this next darkest color. So what I did for that one is I just took some of the pre-existing black and mixed it with this green to get this super dark green shade. And then I just went ahead and made the outline, and now I'm going to fill that in. This looks a lot darker on camera than in person, but I promise you it is green. For this next bit, I'm going to be doing this kind of squarish bit here. So I mixed up this color. I used this green shade as my base color and then just added a little bit of yellow and a little bit of gray. And I'm doing the same thing as before with the outline, so it goes 8 up and 10 over. So as you can see, I finished that, and I did a bit more detailing with that same color. You can see around here is kind of the same. Now I'm going to be working on this lighter green here, and I just took that green that I had already used and added a bunch of this yellow to it. So now I'm going to do that. So I just finished the first coat of that, and as you can see, I did the same thing as with the darker green, and I kind of went through and added some more detailing. For this next shade, I'm going to make this really like yellowish green. And to make that, I'm just going to use the green that I already have and then just add more yellow to it. This is the color I ended up with. I ended up adding yellow and white because it was pretty dark without the white. So now I'm just going to go in and make an outline and fill in this bit here. And now that I've done the light green, ignore the mistake, I'm going to move on to this sort of like sandish color down here. And for that, I used Toasted Marshmallow, that's the name of this paint, and I just mixed a little bit of green with it. And now I'm doing the light blue here and here. And the way that I mixed that color was I used this as my base color, and then I added a little bit of light blue, and then that wasn't enough, so I added some white, and then I added like a little drop of pink because it was more of like almost has like a hint of purple to it. I'm not sure if you can quite see that on camera. And I show this process because it's pretty common that I'll get a comment of someone asking exactly what colors I use for my paintings. But if I'm mixing together a bunch of random colors from random brands, I can't really tell you. And for this darker blue, I'm just taking this paint that I used and then making this by adding a little bit of this. For the gray in the background here, I'm just going to start off by using this Timeless Gray, and then once I am able to add multiple coats, then I'll fine tune the colors some more. For this goldish color on top, I started with this yellow, added orange, brown, and this like whitish, and then I came up with this. So now I'm going to fill that in, which might be a little bit of a process because this part does have a lot of different colors in it. So I just finished the gold, and I also did a light orange, and I just made this sort of like brownish orange because there's a lot of different shades in this part of the painting, so I'm trying to just block out where they are at this point. Once I have the first coat done and all the colors sort of like laid out where they're supposed to be, then I'll go back and add in a whole bunch of details and lots of different shades and such. Alright, so this is what I've gotten done so far. I'm definitely going to be making some changes to it with the other coats because I'm not a huge fan of how it turned out, but I mean, I can kind of see the resemblance. Now I'm going to start on the little fighting dudes. And now that I have the first coat done for them, all I have left is this little corner piece in the sky. Now since this is only the first coat, I can probably get away with just using an orange I already have for that part, and then mixing like a purplish and a pinkish for that. And 5 hours of painting later, I am finally done with the first coat. For the purple, I ended up using this, and for the pinkish orange, I mixed these two. And for any other shades like this blue and this orangish brown, I just used colors that I already had and mixed them in with a little gray. So this is where we're at after one day of painting. I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made, but there definitely are some things that I want to change when I add more coats. But I'm going to call it a day because my back is killing me. So I will see you the next time I have time to paint. Hello, I am back, and it is time to start on day 2, which means I'm going to be starting on the second coat. And for me, that kind of just means going back and filling in all of the really thin parts of the paint, and also adding different colors and trying to fix some colors that I don't like as much. So I'm starting with this color here. As you can see, I've already made kind of like a test color, which I think I like more because the original one was just a little too cool, I guess. And the way I made that color is by using the same green that I've usually been starting with and just adding a bunch of yellow and a little bit of black. I feel like the second coat of paint always makes the biggest difference for me. Like looking at the difference between these two is just crazy. Alright, I just finished the second coat for that color, and the dark green. And I think we're making some good progress. Basically all I did was I kind of just adjusted them a little bit. So I made this one a little brighter and a little more yellow. I made this one a little more yellow, and I also lightened this dark green a little bit. And next what I'm going to do is this color here. I'm just going to start with like a yellowy green and kind of make it more gold, because right now I think it's too similar to this one. after finishing the second coat of the greens and also the black up here, I feel like my lines look a lot cleaner and the colors definitely look a lot more solid. Next, I'm going to be fixing this gray here because it is definitely not the right shade. So I mixed up a different shade of gray with this gray and a little bit of orange in it. It's not dry yet, but I do feel like this gray looks a lot better than the other shade. So now I'm just going to go in and add a second coat up here with the colors that I made yesterday. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to focus on the blues because on the reference, there's a lot more contrast between the light blue and the dark blue, and I feel like they're too close together here. So after a bit of trial and error, these are the colors I ended up with. For the blue, I just added a little bit of white and this sort of lilac color. And for the darker blue, I ended up just adding some darker blue and a little bit of black. I think the blues look a lot better now, so I'm pretty happy with that. Next up on my list is to add another coat of white. Okay, I think that's done. I also did a layer of the skin tones and I started on the border, so that has a second coat as well. So I think all I have left is this corner here. And for that, I just need to do a light orange, this kind of salmon-y color, this creamish, and then the purple. So here's how it's looking after the second coat is done. I think the colors look a lot better than they did yesterday. So now that I have all the base colors filled in pretty well, my next step is going to be going in and adding a bunch of details and other colors just to try and make it look better. Because on my reference here, you can see everything blends a lot better because there's just a lot more shades in there. So I'm going to be going in and adding more, especially in this kind of sky area, to make it more of a gradient. But I'm going to be saving that for another day because I have been painting for almost 5 hours straight today, and I painted for 5 hours yesterday, so I need a little bit of a break. But I will see you probably later this week whenever I have a little more time to paint. Alright, it's been about a week since that clip, but I'm back and ready to finish this painting. So the next step is to mix a bunch of different colors to blend this part out. And I notice on the reference up here, there's sort of like some greenish yellow, so I think I'm gonna add that first. I think I'm pretty happy with that color, so I'm gonna call it good. The way that I ended up doing that was the same as the other ones, where I just go reference my reference and I count over how many pixels up and over and then just match it to that. And as you can see by my little test swatch here, I'm going to change up this brown just a little bit to make it a little closer to the orange. And now I'm going to tackle this corner here and just mix a color that's in between the two and then use that to blend them. Alright, I finished that part and I just mixed this shade here to add to the lighter green here just to give it a bit more texture. I forgot to mention this in the last clip, but I did do a bit of painting off camera. But I was just following the same steps as before and just kind of mixing the colors to make ones in between, and then it just adds more detail. And for all these little details, I'm not making it exactly like the reference. I'm kind of just doing what I think looks good. I decided to finish up the touch-ups without recording because I needed my full attention and I did not want to mess up. But pretty much all I did was just go back in and fill in the same colors of any paint that I noticed was kind of thin, or just the same thing as that I've been doing and making new shades and just blending everything. So without further ado, here is the final result. If you enjoyed this video, I have good news for you because I already have another commission in line. This person is wanting, I think, the skull underwater painting, so I'm definitely going to make a video on that. But thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. I hope you guys found this video, this sort of tutorial style, a little bit helpful. I know I jumped around a little bit, so I apologize for that. But I feel like I went over all the steps that I usually take for making a painting pretty well. If you have any other like specific questions or anything, just DM me on Instagram. I reply like 99% of the time. And if you have any suggestions for future ideas, just comment down below and I will definitely take them into consideration. But that is it for this video. I'm pretty happy with how the painting turned out and I am very excited to get started on the next one, so I will see you then.